Let's start with our feet hip width apart and just on one side, taking a nice big shoulder roll. So just going backwards, moving just that one side, and then place the hands on the shoulder and circle the elbow. And noticing how much rotation happens naturally in your body. So not a great deal. I'm just moving forwards a little bit because the next position is to have a whole straight arm. So in order to get that arm comfortably behind you, you need to have more rotation. But don't overwork it. And then that same side, bring it up and back and over, going in the opposite direction. And if you can see yourself in your monitor or on your screen, just check that you're, or in front of a mirror, check that you're rotating truly around your centre, and then popping the hand on the shoulder and circling. So the focus here is circling the elbow. We're going to revisit this movement in a moment. So think about the circle that the elbow is making here, and then finishing off just the shoulder on its own, noticing that you don't really need to do much rotation with this one. Great, and then let's go to the other side. So just the shoulder, so just the top of the rounded part of the shoulder, moving backwards, standing up nice and tall. Pop the hand on the shoulder, now circle the elbow. Notice the rib cage shifting from side to side. Great, and then lengthening that arm. And in order to make it comfortable, keep your head facing forwards. Allow the shoulders and the hips and the ankles a little bit to move. We're going to explore that movement in a moment, and then let's change direction, coming up and over. So my other arm is just hanging, and I'm noticing it swinging forwards and backwards a little bit, and then the hand on the shoulder. And there's almost as much movement here because I'm thinking about that elbow, making a really big circle front to back, and then the whole arm. The whole arm just hanging, and the shoulder just moving on its own. Ooh, brilliant. And then maybe just a couple backwards and a couple forwards. In fact, let's go into my shoulder elbow circles here. So we're going to repeat this movement on the floor, and actually fingertips to temples, but now we're going to go one at a time. So it's sort of keeping your fingertips touching your temples, but your hands will move a little bit. The focus is, again, circling the elbows back. So as one's going back, the other one's coming forwards, up and over. This is all forwards, and then we're going to reverse the direction. So great way to warm up around the thoracic spine, and a lovely way, a lovely addition to our abdominal work when we're on our back. Some of you know what to expect there. Great job. Okay, thinking about isolating that rotation a little bit. I'm coming a little bit closer to the camera, and I want you to just think, first of all, just facing the camera, facing the screen, and just open up your eyes nice and wide. You don't have to open your mouth, but I tend to want to. Keep your mouth shut, but open up your eyes nice and wide, and just turn your eyes to the side and then come back to the centre. Just your eyes. Look as far to one side, back to centre as you can, and then just the eyes, centre, and eyes, centre. Good, and we're going to lead with the eyes, and we're going to gradually build up our rotation around our spine. So feet sort of shoulder width apart. So turn your eyes fully to one side, and then turn your head fully to one side. Turn your eyes back to face forwards, and then follow with your head. Eyes to the other side on their own, and then turn the head fully, eyes towards the front, and then follow back with your head. We're adding on just the rib cage and the shoulders, so keep your hips nice and still. So eyes first, then the head, and then I'm thinking just about my shoulders really, and I'm rotating around my ribs, keeping my hips facing forwards, and I can now see towards that back corner. to return, eyes first, and then follow head and then shoulders. Eyes to the other side. Head turns all the way. Shoulders only. Don't let those hips join in. And again, I can see really comfortably to this back corner. Eyes to the front, head follows, shoulders follow. We've got 2 more sets to go. Eyes first, then the head, then the shoulders. Now the hips. Allow your hips to go, but think of your knees staying facing forwards. So I'm looking, I can see about here comfortably. So I've gone from that corner to there. Turn the eyes, then the head, then the shoulders, then the hips to come back. Other side. Eyes, head, shoulders, hips, but don't let the knees go. So knees are really facing forwards, therefore knees and ankles are facing forwards. On this side I can see a little bit further round. Eyes come back to the front first, then head, then shoulders and hips. Last one, eyes, head, shoulders, hips and ankles. And I can look completely behind me in this wonderful straight line. To come back, eyes first, head, shoulders, hips, ankles, and to the other side. Eyes, head, shoulders, hips, ankles, and this side, because this is looser for me, there's my straight line. I can actually see a little bit beyond that. So I've gone beyond that 360, 180, I'm not sure. Eyes first, head, shoulders, ribs, hips, ankles, all the way back. Great, and then take some full, really natural rotation. This should feel quite nice now. Looking behind you is the focus. Let your arms just swing. Let every single section that we just worked on, the head, the shoulders, the hips, and those ankles rotate as well. And just letting the arms be really nice and natural. That should feel quite nice. Great job. Okay, we are reaching up. Let's take the feet, let's stay with shoulder width apart. So 4 reaches up. We're going to do 4 sets of these, gradually adding on a little bit each time. 4 reaches up, bring your fingertips to your temples. I'm just going to turn sideways. We're taking a roll down, but with the arms here. So you're just adding a little bit of extra weight to that upper body. Scoop your tummy in, keep your pelvis in neutral, upper body goes over until you can't go anymore, then soften the knees. When you're halfway down, let those arms hang, just nod your head, shake your head, gently straighten the legs and soften the knees a couple of times, easing into those hamstring stretches, and then we're rolling up, tucking the pelvis under, pushing the pubic bone forwards, stacking the spine so the head lifts last, and then to get back up to the top, turn your palms up all the way and lift up to the ceiling. 4 reaches up again. Try and lead with the other arm this time. 4, 3, 2, 1. Fingertips to temples. I'm going to stay facing forwards this time. Go up and over. Feel that extra weight. Soften those knees. You're unraveling your spine. Straighten and bend the legs again. Making sure you're nice and relaxed. Arms are hanging. Head is relaxed. Neck is relaxed. And then we're rolling up. Unraveling. Adjusting the clothing. And then we're going all the way up to the top. 4 reaches up. So this is lengthening the spine. And talking about the driving theme, this is something I always recommend you doing if you've been in the car, a long car journey, say you've been sitting in the car for a couple of hours, whether driving or as a passenger, this is a great thing to do when you get out to go and get your coffee at the services or whatever, just to lengthen that spine. So tucking the chin onto the chest, rounding up and over with that upper body, mobilise through the whole spine, hang from your waist. I'm going to bring my feet a little bit closer together this time, keeping them parallel, and now I'm just going to straighten one leg and let the other leg bend. So I'm getting a stronger stretch on the hamstrings on the straight leg side. And your pelvis will tilt. So the straight leg hip will be higher than the bent leg side, and your pelvis is just tilting from side to side. An equal amount of those, still warming up, and then soften those knees, roll up through the spine, adjust the clothing, and here we go for the last one. All we're going to add this time is a little elbow lead rotation to those legs. We've done this before, so reaching up 4 times, lengthening the spine, the rib cage is really lifted off of the hips, up and over, keep that pelvis in neutral, soft knees when you need to, roll all the way down, and then straighten one leg. Maybe watch me for the first one if you're not sure. Come up a little bit with your spine. So I've got my one leg straightened, that same side, I'm going to lift that elbow up and extend the arm up to the ceiling, looking up to the ceiling. Everything is rotated around. Then I'm going to sweep that arm back down to the floor. Just fingertips on the floor, swapping over the legs. The straight arm side, lift the elbow, extend the arm and sweep round. Another 4 of those. Swap sides, elbow. So think of that lovely long line from the top hand through your arms, through your shoulders, and I've changed my fingers slightly to be fingertips in the floor. So it's the rotation in the spine that we're after. Swap the legs over, get that beautiful straight line. This is the last one for me. Make sure you've done an equal amount on both sides. Soft knees and rolling up through the spine. Fantastic. Okay, so another thing that's that we need to think about when we're driving, when we're seated and actually just when we're sitting in general, is about the pelvis being in neutral, the spine being in a neutral position as well. So let's just have a little look at hinging from our hips and really building the stamina for our back to stay in a good neutral position, especially as far as the pelvis is concerned. So pin your arms to your sides a little bit. Let's have the feet quite narrow, hip width apart, but I'm just going sideways. Pin your arms by your side, stick your bottom out. Find your mini hip hinge position. I was a little bit too low then actually when I looked in the mirror. It's about there. It's about 30 degrees forwards. My arms are pinned to my sides. Don't have your hands touching your legs because your arms will be bent, so your hands will probably stick out a little bit, but pin them to your sides and then coming up. So that weight should be back on the heels. Let's hold this one here. Remember, your bottom has gone back behind you. Knees are just slightly soft, and I can tap the whole of the front of both feet at the same time because my weight's back on my heels. It's a little bit of a hamstring stretch, maybe. The whole of the spine is in its correct position. Just let those arms hang forwards, so just gravity allowing those arms to hang forwards. Your palms are facing forwards. What I want you to think about here is the shoulder tips. So keeping the shoulders and across from one side to the other, really nice and square, so not letting that happen. Pin those shoulders or just lengthen them out from one side to the other. And then we're going to make that harder by reaching the arms forwards, but we're still drawing those shoulder blades down in your back, bottom is still sticking out, and then as you come up, open your palms, open your arms out to the side, palms are up, and let's go again. So hands glued to your side, arms glued to your side, stick your bottom out, let those arms fall forwards, but really don't let that shoulder position change at all. Reach the arms forwards, hold it there, and then coming up, drive the hips forwards, maybe open up the chest a little bit, and then arms down by your side. And again, one more, last one. So we're there. So this position really helps me to open up those shoulders, and then when I let the arms fall forwards, I don't let that change. I don't let that tension around the shoulder blades change, if you like. Bringing the arms forwards a little bit, palms are up, rotating out, and up to the top and back down by your side. Perfect. We're going to add on to this with some squats, some narrow squats. I'm just going to stay on a diagonal. So we're sending the bottom back this time. In fact, if I stay sideways, sending the bottom back, we want those knees above the ankles, The hip hinge was there at the beginning and the end, and then we're coming up. My palms are up, my arms are in exactly the same position as they just were. So the only difference now is that I'm bending my knees and my ankles much more. Otherwise, spine is staying in the same position. I'm hinging more at the hips, or I'm creasing more at the hips, if you like, there. Great, okay, stay down. So tuck the chin in a little bit. We're going to pitch the weight forwards onto the balls of the feet. Lift the heels up, lower the heels. So your weight transfers forwards, your plumb line, if you like, your centre of gravity, and then it rocks back a little bit into the heels. Forwards, really raise those heels all the way up. Heels are down, you rock back. Keep the neck long. Keep that bottom sticking out. Try and keep the knees above your ankles. You have to pitch forwards a little bit, but what I mean is keep that angle the same. So chest is lifted. Generally when we start to get tired in this position, and this is quite strong, we start to collapse a little bit in that lower back. Push those heels down and driving up. Great. We're going to move on to adding a little bit more into this. You might want a wall or something nearby for a bit of support, just for a bit of balance, but don't use it all the time. So we're coming down into the narrow squat, sending the bottom back. We're pitching the weight forwards and lifting the heels up. From here, I'm opening up, I'm changing the angle at my hips, so changing just that angle there. Nothing else is changing. I'm uprighting my body. It's strong work on the legs and the knees, the heels are still up. Here's the balance side of it. I'm going to straighten my legs, coming all the way up to straight legs, and then lower my heels. So, narrow squat, pitch the weight forwards, raise the heels. Now upright your body. It's almost like you've switched on the adjustments in your seat and you've changed the position of your seat. And then you're coming up, I won't stay there for too long because that's strong on the legs, and lowering the heels. One more in this direction. Weight back on the heels, pitch forwards, lift the heels. Draw those knees forwards. This is strong on the legs. Try and stay up with those heels if you can. Fully straighten the legs here. The thing to note, hopefully, I'm going to lower my heels, is that nothing has changed from the top of my spine to the base of my spine. Doesn't matter which position I'm in. Oh, let's do one more. Sorry. There. So hips back, raise those heels, upright your spine, then straighten the legs, then lower the heels. Good job. So let's do 4 of those in reverse. I'm going to go slightly more on an angle. So we're going up to the top, beautiful straight ankles. Lower your body down, keeping everything where it should be. Then stick your bottom out and basically hinge from your hips. Heels are still up. Then push your heels down. The weight goes into your heels, then come up to stand. So we're up to the top. Whoop, no balance on this side. And lowering a little bit. So spine is upright. The only change is here. Way, and sending my hips back. It's challenging. Holding it there, pushing those heels down, so we're still into the squat, and coming up. 2 more if you can. So to the top, stay upright. Heels lifted. Send that bottom back. I have to counterbalance a little bit with my arms coming forwards. Push the heels down. Then we're back into that narrow squat, straighten the legs, last one, here we go. To the top, nice straight legs, bend the knees, hinge at your hips. It's tough on the balance. Getting a little bit grippy in those hip flexors, push the heels down, the weight goes back into the heels, think about those shoulders, and standing all the way to the top. Fantastic, brilliant. We are just going to finish off this section, I'm only a couple of minutes over what I wanted to be, with some Fred Flintstone walks, because driving class, you can't not do this. So, the thing I'm noticing as I'm seeing this in class is that everyone's taking too big a step. So you're putting your heel down, level with your big toe of the other foot. You're transferring your weight 100% onto that leg. The other foot is lifted. Then I'm lifting the heel. This is the really difficult part. Then I'm placing the next foot down by the heel, roll through, and there. So there's a cycling motion going on. Notice that my hips, my torso, my head doesn't change. I'm rolling through my feet. It's strong work, but it's great. Once you get the feeling of this, you're going to be doing it everywhere. Just really warms the feet up, it's lovely. And just nice and strengthening for the feet. Perfect, okay, great job. We are going to go nice and wide with the legs. Let's start here nice and wide with the legs and parallel. We're coming into our hip hinge. I'm going to go sideways actually. Again, pin your arms by your side. So arms are nice and straight. I'm tucking them in. I can actually feel my lats. That's how much I'm sort of gripping the sides of my body. Hinging forwards until you find the biting point of your hamstring stretch, which is very similar when you're driving to finding the biting point of the clutch. So as you're lifting that clutch pedal up and it's engaging, makes the car move forwards, makes the car go into gear. That's what we want to do with our hamstrings. Just find that tipping point and then coming up. One more. Pitching all the way forwards. And then let's just repeat those arms that we just did in the mini hip hinge. So allow your arms to hang, but don't let those shoulders round. Keep the shoulders pulled back. Reach the arms forwards, palms are up. And then as we come up to stand, we're opening out the arms. I'm going to come forwards again. So palms down by your side, hinge forwards. Making sure that weight is forwards on the balls of your feet so that you can tap both heels. And then letting the arms hang. So I'm noticing that my shoulders are making a really square, it's a door frame, it's not an arch, it's a door frame here. And then I'm lifting the arms forwards, challenging it even more. Palms are up, so there's that nice rotation in the shoulders. This is making the stretch on my hamstrings a little bit stronger, and then I'm opening out. Let's open out the chest a little bit and bring the arms down by the side. One more, here we go. Hinging forwards, let those arms hang, but don't let the shoulders go. Reach the arms forwards, palms up. Opening out as you come up. I forgot that bit, I changed it slightly. That's because I was thinking about the next thing. Okay. So let's come forwards one more time. This time palms are down. And we're going to repeat this movement on the floor a little bit later. And I want you to really think about isolating your upper body as we just take a little aeroplane tilt from side to side. Now try and keep your head and your eye line in the middle. So sort of look at the tip of your nose, go a little bit cross-eyed. Basically so that you don't do what we did earlier. So what we did earlier was we turned the head independently. Keeping it all fixed. You will want to shift into one hip and then into the other. Really try and stay true. So keep your weight in equal on both legs. I've overturned my head then. And just go as far as you can around that rib cage, and my arms are starting to shake a little bit. Ooh, and I'm going to relax all the way down to the floor and just nod the head, bend those knees. Let's take the feet much wider. And turn your toes out to the corners of your yoga mat if you have one. If you don't, just imagine that same sort of space. And then keeping your hands in the middle, and my weight is through my hands. If you need it to be through your hands, that's absolutely fine. You can do these sort of stretches using a chair or something, or a cushion maybe, or a poof, just to give yourself a little bit more height there. And essentially I'm bending one leg, fully straightening the other, making sure my knees go over my toes. So if you wanted to work a little bit harder with this. You would take the hands away, and then you're trying to keep hips at the same height as you go from side to side. Good, we're going to turn all the way around to the side. I always turn that way, so today I'm going to turn the other way. Have a think about which way you would normally always turn straight away. Hopefully your feet will be in this position where you've got that front knee above the front ankle and the other leg is straight behind you. Again, the weight is going through my hands to help me. I'm going to bend the back knee, straightening the front leg, pulling the toes up, and then swap the legs over, straightening the back leg, bending the front knee. If this is too much for you, if you haven't got the flexibility here, put that back knee down on the floor. Take your hips back and bring your hips forwards. When your hips are forwards, you're thinking about stretching the hip flexors here. When your hips are back, you're thinking about hamstrings. If you can, keep that back leg off. We're aiming ideally for 2 straight legs as well. So there's the more advanced version of that one, I guess. Okay, let's move on. Bringing the weight forwards. In fact, no, let's lift the chest actually. Lift the chest, come up to rest on that front knee a little bit. Now at the moment both feet are facing forwards. I'm going to drop my back heel down, which opens up this back hip. Foot is nice and flat. My back hip and my shoulders have opened. Come into the warrior. Look along that front arm. It's a strong position. Maybe elbow down to the floor, maybe arm stretching overhead, maybe a little bit more of a reach down there, hand to the floor. Just do what you can. And then come down to that opposite hand to the front leg on the floor and square everything up again. We're now going to reach the same side, the same arm as the front foot. Reach the arm forwards, go up, turn and take that arm behind you, follow it with your head, bring your arm in and try and get your elbow down towards the floor. We're lengthening forwards, we're going up, we've got this wonderful rotation going on, there's lots of stretching going on in that, for me in that back leg, in my left leg. Elbow down, one more, stretching all the way up, round and over. This is stuff we normally do, just slightly different. We're going to turn around to the other side. Try not to come down onto your knees. Stay with those feet where they were, because they were already in the perfect position. When you get to the other side, check that that knee is above your ankle, and then again we're shifting the weight forwards and backwards. Alternating, straightening one leg, or actually taking your hips forwards and backwards, because if you drop the knee down you don't straighten the back leg. Although you can do. So if you need to drop the knee down for the hamstring stretch, which is this one, then maybe lift that knee off for the hip flexor stretch, which is here. Ideally keep the legs off. We're aiming for those 2 straight legs. We're aiming to get that body along that front leg. And then let's come forwards. Lift the chest. So this is hard work on its own, this position, but I'm going to put that back heel down, open up the hip, which means I can lift my chest more, and now I feel quite stable. Extend the arms, look along that front arm, great, and then elbow onto that knee, extend that other arm up above your head, creating that lovely diagonal line, maybe fingertips down towards the floor. I'm pushing my knee against my shoulder, I'm pushing my knee back with my shoulder a little bit actually. Maybe hands down, or a bit tighter on this side, and then I'm bringing everything back round to square up to the end of my mat. Now I'm reaching the same arm as that front leg forwards. It's going up and I'm tucking it in and trying to take the elbow down towards the floor. Forwards to reach it up. Woo. Elbow down. 2 more. Forwards, up and over. Elbow down and forwards, up and over. Elbow down. Place your hands down. Come on to all fours. Great job. So we are on all fours. Just come a little bit closer and try and stay quite sideways. Actually, I'm going to go a bit more a jaunty angle. Great, so all fours, square box position. Taking your pelvis, think about your pelvis, think about your tailbone, and from your neutral position, really tuck it under. And as you do this, I want you to think of a rolling motion. Imagine you've let your car's not in gear anymore, you're just rolling forward slightly. So you're tucking the pelvis under, and the movement is rolling through your spine as it comes up to the upper back, the head drops. You're taking your weight slightly forwards, shoulders over your fingertips, and then you're releasing. So it's a sit-bone circle. But I really want you to focus on this first pelvic tuck under and get that ripple going all the way through your body. Bending your arms slightly. So from your all fours position, tuck under, roll through, release that lower back. One more if you can. Good. Adding on from there, we're going to just curl the toes under, lift the hips, keep your legs bent if you want to, keep your heels up, push your chest back through your arms. So it's a really nice stretch in your back. If you want to stretch the hamstrings, if you've got the flexibility there, straighten those legs, try and push those heels down. And then we're bringing the weight forwards again over those hands, and we're bending the knees and lowering the knees. Let's try 4 of those. Remember to stretch fingers and thumbs far apart, so you've got that nice support in your hands. Curl your toes under, lift your hips. So it's a sense of arching the back here, really tilting that pelvis, straight legs, nice flat back, come forwards and lower the knees. And again, lift the hips up, push back, roll forwards a little bit, lower the knees. One more of these. Oh, there's the first rhyme. Flat back, straight legs if you can, rolling forwards and coming down. Great, we're building up to this last movement, which is a combination of those two things. It's quite strong, but a really nice thing to do, mobilizing your spine. So we're going to lift the legs up. We're going to have the legs quite straight. Lift the hips up high as you can. Sorry, lift the hips up, not the legs. You're lifting your heels and you're starting that pelvis rolling through, tucking under. You come forwards and then you tilt your pelvis back the other way and you go back. So tucking under, lift the heels, start that ripple, roll forwards. You could bend your knees slightly there if you wanted to go all the way back. So think of the pelvis initiating the movement. Tilt the pelvis to roll back. One more if you can. Tuck under, roll through, arch that back. Pushing all the way back. Woo, fantastic. And dropping down to the mat. Brilliant. Okay, let's take from our all fours position one more thing here. So if you need to, do some sea anemones, make some fists, stretch those fingers apart, get some work going on in those wrists if you need to. Taking one leg out to the side, make sure the foot is level with your knee. Keeping your spine absolutely in its neutral, we're just stretching back. So again, we're playing about with being able to stay in that nice neutral pelvis especially. The whole of my back is in neutral, and we're getting that hip hinge to be a natural thing, and also getting a stretch on your inside thighs. So about 4 or 5 of those. So don't go back so far that your back rounds, just keep that lower back arched. Then we're going to open up the same arm as the leg that's out to the side and rotate the spine, looking up to the ceiling. Then we're threading the needle through for 4 and up to the top and threading through. So breathing wise, Naturally, it feels really nice to breathe in here, expanding, opening across the chest, and breath out to thread all the way through. I'm going to do one more, I'm not sure how many I've done. Breath in, and a breath out to thread through, swapping over. So hands shoulder width, knees hip width, take the other leg out to the side. The other side might feel really quite different. It does for me. I don't get much of a stretch on this side, weirdly. So taking the hips back. So I really don't notice it anywhere near as much on this side in my adductors, in my inside thighs. I really don't know why. Well, I do know why, because it's my my other side is my tighter side for my hips. So stretching back, focusing on that hinge. That's the bit that changes. Nothing else changes, actually. That's what's important about this. And then we're going to lift up. Now, as you lift up, the hips will rotate and join in with you. That's absolutely fine. Big breath in, and then thread the needle through. Try and get as much rotation in the opposite direction in your upper body. So from your waist upwards for this one, not so much for the first one. For this one, my hips are joining in with the rotation, that's absolutely fine. This one then, not so much. Last one, up to the top and stretching through, and well done. Let's come and sit on our bottoms, legs out in front. I'm just going to turn my heater off because I'm getting a bit warm. Brilliant. So seated posture, pelvis in neutral, sitting upright on the floor is the hardest thing. But that's why we're doing this exercise today. That's what the focus is on, the driving, is being able to keep that pelvis in your neutral position so that you're sitting right up on your sit bones. And if you look at, if you do get problems with your back and you look at stuff on the internet, one of the things that people sell as an aid to help you driving is a lumbar support, where there's a cushion that will go into your lower back. It's strapped to the bottom of the seat and it makes your lower back stay in this position. But what we want to do is try and get you to use your muscles to be able to do that and to be able to hold that for any length of time. And also be nice and lengthened in the spine. So the spine is in its natural curves. So right up on your sit bones, right up in that neutral pelvis, legs bent, heels digging into the floor, arms out to the side. I'm slightly away from my wall. That's it, arms out to the side, palms up, just to make it a little bit harder. Isn't that lovely of me? So legs are going to stay pretty much as they are, but we're going to circle the feet at the ankles. So your goal here is to sit up as tall as you can all the way through. My knees are moving a bit, but not much. My heels are digging into the floor, so I'm very conscious of my heels and my sit bones. Those four sort of bony prominences, if you like, those are my four areas of contact with the floor. Nothing else is touching the floor. Spine is in its natural curves. Changing direction if you haven't already. Then let's just extend through the ankles and curl those toes over, pointing the feet. Stay scrunched as you bring them back. So it's your cherry picking. Extend the ankles, toes over, stay scrunched to come back. Ankles, toes, and again the legs will straighten a little bit, but essentially the heels stay where they are. They're not sliding up and down the mat. Think about your upper body, keep those arms up if you can. Great, let's reverse this movement with those feet. Stay scrunched, dig into the floor and pull your toes back up as you flex at the ankle, flexing the foot. Again, knees are going to join in a little bit. This is all quite strong. And have a well-earned slump for a moment. And just notice that's hard work. It's hard work to have that stamina to be able to hold that spine in neutral all the time. But the more we do it, the better it will get. Let's take a little stretch here. This is tough. Legs, my feet are as wide as my yoga mat. And again, I'm trying to sit up as tall as possible. I'm trying for my spine to be in neutral. And then the goal from here is to try and hinge from the hips. And depending on your level of flexibility, this potentially will be really quite difficult. So what we tend to do is, as we start to go forwards, we collapse because we haven't necessarily got the flexibility either in the lower back to maintain that neutral and or the hamstrings. So there's something holding you back there, but it's a really worthwhile exercise to do. So stick with it for a moment or two. If you can, flex your feet so that just everything feels nice and strong. Try and only hinge from your hips. Don't be tempted to collapse in that upper body. I'm going to let you collapse in the upper body in a moment. So just hinging. I'm just getting a tiny little stretch at the top of my hamstrings. Not a tiny little stretch, but I'm working really hard to keep my spine as much as possible in its natural curves. Then I'm going to let my legs relax. I'm going to open them up a tiny bit more, and then I'm going to reach all the way forwards. And this is a very different kind of stretch. I'm letting my elbows reach towards the floor. I've let my back collapse. Now I'm getting more of a connection and a stretch. Yes, in my hamstrings, but also inside thighs. And if you can get there, doesn't matter if you can't, just hold on to the lower part of the leg. Just take a bit of a movement from side to side. Let's just ease ourselves into this. I was going to do the saw, but it's quite restrictive if you haven't already got the flexibility. So something that we'll start to work on. Great, okay. Lying down on your backs. Remember that lovely circling motion of your elbows. That's going to come into play here. So we're lying down on our backs. And we're actually not going to be in the base position at all. We're going to take a nice pelvic tilt, pushing your lower back into the mat, using your lower abdominals to start with, then bend both knees in as far as you can so that you're adding the weight of your legs to that, but basically use your muscles to do it first of all. Hands interlaced, hands at the back of the head, elbows nice and forwards. Come up as high as you can, higher than a normal Pilates curl. So clear those shoulder blades. Try and get your elbows to touch your knees if you can. And then we've left the car behind, or the car has broken and you're going to cycle for this one. Sorry, I just apologise first of all. So, our cycling, you extend the leg, then you lower the beautiful straight leg, and then you draw that knee in to try and touch its same side elbow. The whole while, my back is really rounded. I'm pushing my lower back into the floor, trying to draw that knee in, but actually if I draw it in too far, my leg tends to turn out. So I'm going to I'm drawing my knee in as much as I can, but without letting it turn out. Pushing that lower back into the floor. So extend the leg at a 45 degrees and then lower it. So you've got that lovely long lever lowering. That's the challenge. Draw the knee in, stay up nice and high, head is supported. Head and neck should be the last things you're worrying about. Let's flex the feet and reverse the direction of our cycling. Again, the straight leg with a flexed foot lifts up. That's the challenging bit. Draw the knee in towards your elbows. Keep pushing that lower back down. If this is getting too much, you can, by all means, lower your head and shoulders down, open your elbows out. If you're okay, keep going. Please keep going. We're only going to do this one set. If you happen to have to lie down, still push that lower back in. Don't let it go, but take the legs higher up towards the ceiling. But still, straight leg moves, straight leg moves. The other knee moves in, draws in. Okay, if you're here, let's go back to pointed feet. Now you have to release your hands from the back of your head. Now we're trying to circle those elbows. So they're going back and then they're coming up and over to touch the opposite knee. And we're swapping. Whew, I'm glad I turned my heater off. Really getting hot now. Move those elbows in a circle. Don't just roll from side to side. That's cheating. I can't even do it at the same time as my legs. Brilliant. Last set. Flex the feet. We're changing the direction of those elbows. It goes up and back. Still trying to touch opposite elbow to knee. Ooh, keeping that lower back pinned down to the ground. When you don't think you can do any more, give me 10 more. Here we go. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my, good job. Woo, hug those knees in and just have a little roll from side to side. Maybe a circle, so hands on the knees feels quite nice. Maybe circling the knees, massaging that lower back. Massaging the lower back and your pelvis on the floor and on the mat. We're going to move into our three-line bridge, which is where you've got, I want you to really focus on having 3 lines in your back. The central line is your spine. The line on the right hand side goes from your hip. If you just take your legs over to the right hand side, so that point where you're just resting, you're balancing on the back of your hip. The right hand line goes from that point in your hip up your spine. So it's going from here up your spine, parallel with your actual spine to your shoulder blade on that right hand side. The left hand line does the same thing. So 3 lines, left hand line, central line, which is your spine, right hand line. Here we go. So thinking about coming up into your bridges, so feet nice and close, start in a good neutral spine. So just have a little bit of a wiggle about if you need to. So let's go straight up and down the middle to start with. So no arms today, just really trying to mobilise that spine, peeling the spine off of the mat, get those hips up as high as you can, send the knees away, switch on those buttocks, switch on at that gluteal fold. When you come back down, soften the ribs first. In fact, don't soften them, that's a bad word. It's not a bad word, but it doesn't apply here. I'm pushing my ribs at the front. I'm using the muscles at the front of my ribs to push the ribs at the back and the spine, one by one, into the mat and unravelling. Okay, let's come up the centre, all the way up to the top. Let's go down the left side, so tilt everything over. Left shoulder blade, left middle ribs, left lower ribs. The waist is a sort of no man's land. Left hip, everything is slightly tilted, well, very tilted. I've only got my left hip in contact. Come into the centre. Up in the middle again. We're peeling the spine up to the top, hips as high as you can. Come down the right hand side now. Right shoulder blade, right middle ribs, lower ribs, down to the right hip. My left hip is completely off of the mat, and then back into the centre. Let's come up to the top again. Come down the right side. So make this quite fluid. Into the centre, one more, up to the top, and this time down that left side. One side will feel a little bit more coordinated and more natural than the other side, which is absolutely fine. Let's go up on the right hand side. So tilt your pelvis over to the right hand side, come up in that straight line from that right hip up to the right shoulder blade, into the centre, come down through the middle, over to the left, up the left hand side, the left hand line to the top, come into the centre, roll down through the middle. Let's go all the way round. So over to the right, we're coming up to the right on the right hand side. Go across the middle, come down on the left hand side. Back into the centre, reverse the direction, up on the left hand side, all the way up to the top, across and over the middle, down on that right hand side and back into the centre. And again, if you feel like you want to hug your knees in and just stretch out that lower back, please do. Then we are lying on our sides. Doing really well with my timing today. So, lying on your side in a beautiful straight line, underneath palm up. And we're going to take 2 sets of scissors from here. So making sure your hips are stacked and your shoulders are stacked, lifting both legs up, keeping the feet nice and parallel. Connect your rib cage to your hips, lift your waist away from the floor. Now, first set of scissors are vertical scissors, so you're opening and closing the legs to the same amount. About 10 of these. We started with the top leg level with the top hip, so make sure it's the underneath leg doing the work to lift up to that top leg. But equally, don't lift the top leg too high when you open out, because it can go obviously much higher than the underneath leg. I reckon I've got about another 4 to do. You could place your arm along your side, a little bit of a balance test. Good, holding that there. Place your hand back down if you did take it away. Turn the legs out in the hip socket so they stay beautifully straight, heels are together, the toes are apart, feet are pointed. Now we're scissoring the legs horizontally, forwards and backwards. Again, trying to work both legs equally. So the underneath leg, well, both legs actually, it's very easy to be in front, to work in front of your midline. Try and take the underneath leg back as far as you're taking the front leg forwards. If you would like to add a little extra balance here, take the arm up and over, and then it feels quite nice. So just lift your ear very slightly off of that underneath leg, getting that lovely length. Keep the legs turned out, have a sense of pushing the heels forward. Great, okay, relax there. Bend your knees. So have your legs at a right angle as if you're sitting in a chair. Bring that underneath arm forwards, opposite your shoulder, and really stretch the arm forwards. Guys, if you would like, because your shoulders are much broader than most of the ladies, you might just want to put a cushion underneath your head, or anyone else, if you want a cushion underneath your head, that would be fine. But make sure this underneath shoulder is really stretched forwards, and then if you try and touch hand to hand, it really shouldn't happen. I'm actually just only past my elbow. And then the movement is, again, lovely rotation. We're lifting up, we're opening out, touching the floor if you can. So this morning I didn't touch the floor, but now I am. So that's nice. About 4 of these. I'm following my arm, my hand, with my head. I'm trying to keep my head nice and heavy on the floor. So my neck is relaxed. Hips might roll back a little bit, knees might come apart a little bit. Absolutely fine. Hold the last one. Opening out. Hold it there and just breathe. Feel that nice stretch, the front of that shoulder on the arm that's at the back. Maybe lift your head up, let that head roll a little bit more. Breathe deeply. And if your arm wasn't touching the floor, maybe on the next out breath it might go that way. And then just turn your head and look back to the screen. And then we're going to straighten the top leg. You're going to flex the foot and hold the leg parallel to the floor. The front arm, you're going to put that elbow into the floor and make a cup with your hand and put that hand underneath that leg. So the leg is now completely supported by your elbow and your hand. Foot is flexed, and then once you've got the leg in that position, slide the underneath thigh back if you want to, opening out those hips even more, and then turn your head away from the camera, look back at that other hand, so you'll open out your shoulders a little bit more. Ease that foot, really flexed foot, really straight leg. Ease that foot towards your head if you can. Breathe deeply. This is called the big stretch. I can feel it in my calf, the back of my knee, my hamstrings, my hip, my spine, the whole of my spine, my shoulders. Everything is working there. Let's just have a little circle of the foot, one way and then the other way. And bending that knee in, sitting yourself up. And we've got all of that on the other side. Oh yes. So lying in a beautiful straight line. So remember, this is the same as if you were standing up. Hips are stacked. If you look down and your feet are flexed, you should be able to see your feet as long as you can see them when you're standing up. So we're extending those legs. We're lifting the legs up. In steps nice and parallel. Waist is lifted, rib cage is connected at the front, shoulder drawn down from the ears, and then we're opening and closing. Moving both legs equally away from each other, placing the arm down along the side. Ooh, if you want an extra challenge, one side is always more difficult for the balance than the other with this work. Keeping those hips absolutely still, waist lifted, pelvic floor engaged, belly button pulling back towards the spine. And holding those legs up, keep the feet pointed. Now turn them out. That turn out happened right up here in the hip. Legs are beautifully straight. Placing the hand on the floor just to get yourself going. And then we are opening and closing. No change in that pelvis. No shifting, no bending of that underneath leg, especially when it goes back. Keep the heels pushing forwards. Sweeping that arm up and over. Maybe just lifting that underneath ear off of your underneath arm. And have that sense of lengthening out, fingertips and toes pulling in opposite directions. Harder when you're trying to balance. Or the underneath leg doesn't want to go back so much on this side. Keep that waist lifted and relaxing there. Well done. Bend the legs in like you're sitting in a chair. Bring that underneath arm forwards. Really pull that shoulder forwards so your shoulders are already getting a bit of a slightly odd stretch here, but I quite like it. Hips are stacked as much as possible. When that hand reaches, if you're here, you haven't brought that underneath arm forwards enough. So just past my elbow is where I am. And then I'm going to try and keep my head nice and heavy as I lift up and open out to the floor behind me. Just breathing evenly, no holding the breath. Or you might want to time the movement, so maybe breathe in as you go up and back, hold it there for your breath out. Or go the other way, breath out as you move, breath in when you get to the end of the movement. Or change it each time actually. Lots of options, just don't hold the breath. If you really use your breath, it will help you to relax and deepen the stretch. So let's hold that arm back there, lift your head up a little bit. You have to just give it a bit of help. Whew. And breathe and relax. And then just bringing the head to face forwards, Put that front elbow in the floor, make a cup with your hand, straighten that top leg. So I can hold pretty much towards my ankle, but you might be holding it more underneath your knee. Just get wherever's comfortable. So it's not hard work on my arm or my leg. The arm and the leg are just sort of helping each other out. Whether the arm is helping the leg out by providing a little shelf to rest on. Then turn your head away. So you can get a bit more rotation in those shoulders. Slide that underneath thigh back. Take your foot towards your bottom. Keep the foot flexed. Stretch your leg forwards towards your head. Push the back of the knee away. Feel the stretch in your hamstrings. I'm going to circle my foot as well. So just waking all those neural pathways up all the way through to your little toes from the top of your head. And breathing. And bending the knees, sitting yourself up. And we are finishing off lying on your tummies, facing forwards. I'm gonna go this way, but you don't have to be, you'll just see what I'm doing a little bit more clearly. And we're just going to take the arms out to the side. I'm just going to let my feet bend a little bit so that I'm making sure I'm in the camera. So, lifting up, head and shoulders, connect everything at the front of the body, connect your rib cage to your hips, push your pubic bone into the mat a little bit, lift up so that you're just on your bottom 3 or 4 ribs. Lift those arms up, out to the side, so they're parallel to the floor. Turn your thumbs upwards, so you're rotating the arms in the shoulder socket. Keep your back really nice and still, and just lift your arms up as much as you can, thumbs up in the air, and then touch your little fingers gently to the floor, and then lift and lower. And you should feel some quite nice, strong work going on around your shoulder blades, and also we're just building the stamina in the back of the neck, keeping that lovely long spine. I'm just going to open my legs up a little bit more and let them relax. Push the pubic bone into the mat, make sure that belly button is just drawn gently in, no stress in the lower back. This is the long weight of my arms, the long arms, the weight of those arms, they're really quite heavy, they're feeling heavy. And I'm feeling my muscles around my shoulder blades doing all of the work to lift and lower. And finishing off, very last thing. Chuck the chin in. Not quite so high now with your back, but lift the arms up and keep them parallel to the floor again. And then let's just take those aeroplane arms. This is really quite subtle. Try not to turn your head on its own. Be very conscious of your hip bones. So you know you've reached the end point of your aeroplane rotation when one hand, just the fingertips, just lightly touch the floor. If you cheat, you could probably go further. Try not to turn the head. Again, just look at the tip of your nose. Try not to shorten on one side or the other. Do an equal amount both sides. And well done. Finishing off with a bit of a wiggle about on all fours. Oh, maybe some shoulder rolls. Thank you for joining me. Live at 5. See you again next week, I really hope. And keep up the good work with the driving moves in between.